Well, it's another beautiful day here in the woods where the temperature has come up and it's going to be a lot nicer over the next little while. Even up above freezing, which will be the first time in a few weeks actually. When the Europeans started coming over to North America, there were a lot of unrealistic expectations. Part of that was the Europeans had absolutely no experience with real wilderness, with real wild country. Europe and Britain had been picked over for millennia. There was no such thing as virgin ground or original wild forests. Every tree in the old country had been cut down and regrown and cut down and regrown unknown numbers of times over centuries. Whole cities and towns would disappear, new towns, and forgotten, and then new towns built over top of them. So the whole notion of really starting from scratch on untouched land was completely foreign. Now that was also an attraction because it's kind of exotic and freeing, but none of these people that came over really had any sensible set of skills to cope with what they were going to encounter. And a lot of them were from either very poor backgrounds, with very poor education, a lot of them illiterate, or middle income type people, or second sons who had no prospects for inheriting anything, who needed to strike out on their own. Certainly no pioneers. Now another problem was, of course, the agents that were hired to convince people to come to the new land. They were paid per head basis for the people that they talked into coming over here. And so they lied through their teeth about how wonderful the place was, how easy it was going to be, how the settlers could just drive out onto the land and build palaces for themselves and estates, throw seeds into the ground and stand back before they knocked them down. The plants knocked them down as they grew without any effort at all. And, of course, people fell for that. And so you would find settlers coming out into the Midwest in covered wagons with really nice furniture, fine china, party dresses, and even grand pianos. Most of those folks failed miserably, retreated to the cities. A lot of them died. But in the end, enough people survived to make a go of it, and over a long period of time, built something up similar to what was in Europe. And we're going to have a modern equivalent of that when going to Mars. The vast majority of people have grossly inaccurate expectations about what they're going to encounter there. And in this case, there's no real equivalence between going across the prairies in the 1800s and going to Mars. Mars is infinitely more dangerous. But we have movies now, science fiction movies that show everything pristine and clean. The only things that break down really are things that are deliberately sabotaged by evil people. Everybody can miraculously program and fix things. And if they can't instantly find the flaw in the computer programs that are causing troubles, then they obviously have the skills to whip up a new program to solve the problem in minutes without any errors. People aren't going to have to do all that much work because it's all going to be done by robots and computers. And of course, everything is going to be set up before you get there anyways. So we have 3D printers that are going to go there and print up cities for us. These are dangerous fantasies. They're going to be counterproductive to successfully initiating colonization of Mars. Primarily because with those sorts of expectations, missions are going to fail, people are going to die, and we're going to very rapidly abandon the effort. Excuse me. I would hate to see that happen. What needs to happen, I believe, is we need to keep this as simple as possible. That means the equipment needs to be as simple and robust as possible, primitive, if you will. And it needs to be understood that certainly initially, I would say the first century of effort is going to be dirty, hard, sweaty, manual labor. It's going to make things work. And we're going to have to be quite fanatic about things like standardization of equipment and even pieces and parts. And I mean really extremely fanatic about it. As I've mentioned in other videos, everything that we take there is going to be precious. So our design principles, the whole attitude towards what it is we design and build to go to Mars, needs to be thought of very, very carefully and done in the simplest way possible. And strangely enough, or maybe counterintuitive, we always think of weight, how much things weigh, when sending them into orbit from Earth, which makes an extraordinarily good sense considering how bloody much it costs to get things off this planet. But it's going to be a mistake to use that as a first principle, weight, that is, for anything that we want to survive on Mars. That's should be way down the list. We should ignore it almost completely in our initial design phases. Doesn't matter how much it weighs. It's going to be on Mars. I mean, the trick is going to be getting it off this planet, but once it gets to Mars, it really doesn't matter how much it weighs. It doesn't have to be light. It has to be robust. And it has to be repairable. So, anybody that's out there that's thinking of designing stuff for Mars, ignore how much it weighs, at least initially. We can certainly, once a working design is made up, to start thinking about paring down the weight, but that should not be a first consideration. And standardization means that the most basic things have to be common. So if you have a bolt that holds something together, well, there should be a standard bolt, a standard thread, even a standard length, although that's not as important. But everything needs to be a standard size, standard shape, standard length, so that they're interchangeable. So if you need a bolt and you've run out of spares, you can take something out of something else and use that. Or, as I said, with the recycling or reusability of everything, then you need to be able to strip down something that's broken for all of the bits and pieces that are going to be commonly useful anywhere else. There is an absolute limit on how many spares you can send. And standardization is its own redundancy. You don't have to take as many spares if everything is standardized as much as possible. I mean, there's certain things that just can't be done that way. So, standardize, keep things simple, and count on doing a hell of a lot more manual labor than you may think. More soon.